Part 29. 9 generations of villains, the heroines have all turned evil. Author, Fu Zituo. Chapter 281. On the other side, the night was thick. Xuanhuan and several righteous Tianjiao gathered outside a collapsed ice cave, all with gloomy faces. It would be fine if Zhang Chen bullied them. Unexpectedly, the demon girl Nangang Juxi of the Wandao demon sect took advantage of their injuries and chased them all the way. Not only did she kill several righteous Tianjiao, but even Xuanhuan lost an arm. Hateful! The one-armed Xuanhuan roared to the sky, his flaws were about to burst. Originally, with his cultivation, even if he was injured, he would not end up in such a miserable state. But the demons are shameless. When he and Nangang Juxi were fighting fiercely, Nangang Juxi suddenly pointed to the distance and shouted, "Zhang Chen is coming." It was the sentence that scared Xuanhuan. And while he was stunned, Nangang Juxi directly swung the sword and cut it down. If he hadn't dodged quickly when he realized he was being tricked, this sword would have taken his life instead of his arm. Whenever Xuanhuan thought of this, he was furious. He was the number 1 swordsman of the 7 Stars Sword Pavilion, the second on the Tianjiao list, but actually the first. This time when he entered the Xianbing secret realm, he was in such a mess. In order to prevent Nangang Juxi from making a comeback, Xuanhuan specially summoned the rest of his fellow disciples. The Tianjiao surrounding him at this time were all from the 7 Stars Sword Pavilion. In addition to Jianlu, there were Jian Jian-san, etc., a total of 6 people, collectively known as the 7 Stars 6 Swordsmen, all of whom were on the Tianjiao list. Jian was a tall man, a few years older than Xuanhuan. Seeing Jianliu's face full of annoyance and exasperation, Jian said, "Big brother, Zhang Chen and the witch are so arrogant because we, the 7 Stars and 6 Sword Masters, have not gathered together. This revenge must be avenged." "Yes, if this revenge is not avenged, how can we return to the Sword Pavilion? How can we enter the Tianjiao list?" Jian-san echoed. The other sword masters were also filled with righteous indignation, and they all expressed that they would let Nangang Juxi suffer the pain of thousands of swords piercing his heart. But Xuanhuan shook his head and said, "Nangang Juxi is not a concern. If I recover from my injuries, I can kill him alone. The point is that Zhang Chen is simply ridiculously strong," Jianlu continued. "Ridiculously strong?" The other sword masters expressed disbelief. How could a person who was not even allowed to enter the Tianjiao list be so strong? It's not the human race's holy body. Lu Lin is here. What's there to be afraid of? Although Xuanhuan and others received news from the ancestor of the Sword Pavilion, they guessed that Lu Lin, the first place on the Tianjiao list, should not be worthy of the name. But they didn't dare to deny it completely because they were afraid of the worst. "You know nothing about Zhang Chen's strength." Xuanhuan shook his head again, and then looked at Jianlu. Jianlu suddenly realized and immediately told Zhang Chen's combat power one by one. After hearing that Zhang Chen used a top-grade spiritual weapon and learned a top-grade technique. "Is he so awesome?" Jian exclaimed in surprise. After hearing that Zhang Chen knew the ancient sword. This is a natural sword emperor," Jian-san's face turned pale. And after hearing that Zhang Chen also had the sky fire of Feng Guo. After a short silence. Hiss. Everyone took a breath of cold air. It's really outrageous. Such age, cultivation, talent, and combat power. Not to mention the middle domain, even the upper domain is probably extremely rare. This Zhang Chen, can't he be the real human holy body? Jian suddenly guessed in shock. Xuanhuan wanted to deny it. After all, the 7 Light Sword ancestor once said that the human race's holy body would not appear at this time. But think about it. It's really possible. The reason why the human race's holy body is strong and rare in ancient times is because of the addition of all the dharmas. When all the dharmas are added, all the skills, secrets, spiritual tools, etc., have no restrictions or bottlenecks for the human race's holy body. This is exactly the same as Zhang Chen's ability to learn the best secrets and master the best spiritual tools with Yuandan cultivation. I heard that when Zhang Chen made a fuss outside Hanjing City, he used both Buddhism and ghost magic. There are very few physiques that can master two kinds of skills, and the human race's holy body is one of them, Xuanhuan analyzed calmly. The human race's holy body also has a characteristic, that is, all skills and secrets can be learned without a teacher. If this is true, it is reasonable for Zhang Chen to know the ancient swordsmanship, Jian San said. Then Zhang Chen did say in public that he was the human race's holy body Lu Lin. Jian Lu recalled. This made Sushan fall into deep thought. Soon, his eyes lit up. Have you ever heard that the reason why the Juyan demon sect went to war with the Lanyun sect was to find the human race's holy body Lu Lin? Sushan asked. All the swordsmen nodded in unison. Although the Qi Yao Sword Pavilion was born recently, it has always been extremely concerned about the movements of the major forces in the central region. Therefore, everyone remembered it clearly. It was indeed this reason. What's more coincidental is that Zhang Chen did appear near the Lanyun sect at that time. What the eldest brother means is. Jian Lu thought of something. So that's it, Sushan suddenly realized and said, I dare to conclude. That Zhang Chen must be the human race's holy body. He just likes to use the alias Lu Lin. So, Lu Lin is just air? The true identity of the human race's holy body is actually Zhang Chen, Jian also suddenly realized. Yes. It must be so, Sushan was sure. I guess that Juyan sect also knew that the human race's holy body also needs time to grow. That's why they let Zhang Chen change his name to Lu Lin. At this moment, everything was right. The sword masters suddenly understood. They didn't expect that Juyan sect could be so cunning. Zhang Chen is clearly the holy body of the human race, but he still throws out the smoke bomb of Lu Lin. This move must be to obtain the only place to go to the upper domain in the sect competition. Simply insidious. Besides being insidious, it's also infuriating. After all, no one had thought before that the human race's holy body would actually appear in the world, and the person with such a physique would actually be the notorious Zhang Chen, who has done all kinds of evil. God is unfair. This matter is of great importance and must be reported to Jianj as soon as possible. We should leave this secret realm as soon as possible, Sushan said. Yes, with this news, even if we fail to enter the secret realm this time, Jianj will not blame us. Jian Liu followed. Jian had a different idea. He immediately lowered his voice and said with bright eyes, Elder brother, the demonic path has created the human race's holy body. This is just adding insult to injury to the righteous path. Don't you want to kill this human holy body in the secret realm and become famous all over the world from now on, becoming the real top one on the list of geniuses? He asked again. Think. Of course Sushan wants to. If you can do this, it will not only be a great contribution to the righteous path, but you will also have one less powerful enemy in the future sect competition. But is this possible? Judging from the strength Zhang Chen has shown, even if they go together, they will be abused. Seeing through Sushan's thoughts, Jian narrowed his eyes and spit out 4 big characters. 7 Light sword formation. Sushan's pupils suddenly shrank. The Qi Yao sword formation requires 6 swordsmen to set up. Once the formation is completed, it can cross the steps and kill in the 4 realms. The sword array's main attack is killing, and if it's unexpected, it can indeed kill Zhang Chen in the first time. But the problem is, to set up the Qi Yao sword formation, you need 6 ancient swords from 6 sword masters. And the ancient sword on Sushan's body had already self-destructed when faced with Zhang Chen's ancient sword technique. Senior brother, you can be the formation yourself, and I will build the formation with the ancient sword outside. In this way, the formation can still be completed, Xuanhuan reminded. Sushan was silent. Of course he knew this, but he just thought that he didn't have a life or death feud with Zhang Chen, so there was no need to go to such an extent. Since ancient times, good and evil have not been coexisting. There has been a hatred of life and death, Xuanhuan sneered. To deal with the devil, you need to use any means. We will first go to the exit of the secret realm to set up an array, and then lure Zhang Chen into it. We will definitely kill him with one blow. Elder brother, don't hesitate. Unless Zhang Chen dies, the right path will not be at rest. If you kill Zhang Chen, you can kill Nangong Juxi. In this way, you can also protect your senior brother from losing his revenge. Since we entered the secret realm, we have been abused by Zhang Chen. Now that we have the opportunity to take revenge, what are you still hesitating about, senior brother? Elder brother. Don't miss this opportunity. Jian Liu and other Jianzi were also trying their best to persuade. Okay, in the end, Sushan agreed. 9 generations of villains, the heroines have all turned evil. Author, Fu Zituo. Chapter 282. At the end of the mysterious realm of black ice. This place is surrounded by glaciers and covered with white snow. There is a long and narrow passage between the glaciers, only big enough for 2 monks to walk side by side. After passing through the corridor, you can reach a one-way teleportation array, which is the only exit of the Xianbing secret realm. In addition to the geniuses and crazy monks, the monks who entered the ice secret realm this time also had many normal monks. It has only been a few dozen days since the ice secret realm opened, but many monks have already gathered in front of the corridor, scrambling to escape. No way. The opening of the Xianbing secret realm this time is really weird. First, there was thunder in the sky, which sent all the monks running around, and then there was a riot by the monsters in the secret realm, and many monks became the food of the monsters. If that's the case, that's it. The most annoying thing is, in almost every location where there are treasures of heaven and earth, there are crazy monks who have arrived first. This caused many monks to curse all the way. After finally making a trip to the secret realm, I didn't get anything. Instead, I almost lost my life several times. At this moment, the monsters in the secret realm are still rioting. For the sake of their own lives, so many monks plan to leave as soon as possible. When Zhang Chen arrived with Nangong Juxi, thousands of monks had gathered inside and outside the corridor. These monks pushed each other, fought each other if they disagreed, and greeted each other's 18 ancestors, which was very lively. Outside the corridor, Zhang Chen found Zhang Lianyu and Zhang Hu. When she saw Nangong Juxi, Zhang Lianyu sighed quietly, not knowing what she was thinking. Zhang Hu, on the other hand, raised his thumb directly towards Zhang Chen and kept winking. Can you see the geniuses like Guo Sushan? Zhang Chen asked. I saw it, Zhang Hu replied first. Sushan and others arrived yesterday. They did not enter the tunnel, but stayed at the foot of the glacier outside the tunnel, as if they were waiting for something. Then Sushan summoned his fellow disciples, and the 6 swordsmen of Qi Yao Sword Pavilion gathered together. Their strength cannot be underestimated, Zhang Lianyu analyzed. Zhang Chen nodded and analyzed secretly. Now that Sushan and others have arrived here, it means they have the idea of leaving. But now he has no intention of entering the corridor, he must have a plan. As for the picture, Zhang Chen also had some guesses. Either he wants to deal with him, or Nangong Juxi. 9 reincarnations, these righteous paths are like this. As long as they seize the opportunity, they will show their righteousness and awe-inspiring and hate evil as much as hatred. Right now, a genius came from afar and arrived directly in front of Zhang Chen. Brother Zhang, Sushan asked me to come and declare a challenge. I want to compete with you under the glacier in the distance. Hear the words. Nangong Juxi, Zhang Lianyu, and Zhang Hu almost laughed. Afternoon. Is there something wrong with Sushan's brain? Have you forgotten that not long ago, Zhang Chen tortured him so much that even the ancient sword exploded? Zhang Chen, this matter. After calming down, Nangong Juxi guessed something and wanted to give a warning. I accept this challenge, Zhang Chen interrupted. This made the genius who came to report the news obviously stunned. He thought that it would take a lot of talking and even some provocation to get Zhang Chen to agree. Unexpectedly, Zhang Chen agreed so readily. What others don't know is, this time Nangong Juxi was injured by Sushan and others. Zhang Chen originally wanted to go on a killing spree to scare the others. Even if Sushan and others didn't take any action, he would be the first to cause trouble. After agreeing, Zhang Chen wanted to go with the messenger Tian Xiao. Knowing that this trip was dangerous, Nangong Juxi and others wanted to follow, but were stopped by Zhang Chen. Don't worry, I'll be fine, Zhang Chen said. Qiyao Sword Pavilion should not be underestimated. The 6 characters of Sushan and other sword pavilions must have extremely lethal trump cards. Nangong Juxi was still worried. In response, Zhang Chen just smiled. Not only did he know this, he also knew that this extremely lethal trump card was the 7 light sword formation. 9 reincarnations. Every time Zhang Chen and the Qiyao Sword Pavilion become enemies, he will be trapped in the Qiyao Sword Array once. At the beginning, he still needed to use many trump cards to survive the power of the Qiyao Sword formation. But as he gained more experience, he had broken through the entire Qiyao Sword formation. Without any exaggeration. In this life, Zhang Chen's understanding of the Qiyao Sword formation is even better than that of Sushan and others. After making Zhang Lianyu and others feel at ease, Zhang Chen stepped forward again. While walking, the genius who reported the news didn't know what he thought of, and suddenly stopped, took up his cultivation and shouted around, "Everyone can go and watch this battle. Hear the sound." The originally noisy group of monks suddenly became quiet. After a while, there were cheers again. Everyone doesn't know how strong Zhang Chen is, but they know that Sushan ranks second on the list of geniuses. The name alone makes it worth a visit. If you can learn something from it, it might be an opportunity. Brother Zhang has extraordinary strength. You shouldn't mind others watching, right? Seeing Zhang Chen silent, the messenger asked with a smile. After all the words were said, did you remember to ask me? Absolutely hilarious. You smile so ugly, you shouldn't mind if I slap you twice, right? Zhang Chen sneered. After saying that, he really gave Tianjiao 2 slaps. He was immediately slapped until he was dizzy. The genius who reported the news did not dare to express his anger, so he had to suppress his resentment and take the lead at the front. Looking at his back, Zhang Chen said coldly. This incident made him more and more convinced that Sushan and others must have set up a sword formation and planned to invite you to the urn. Only in this way can we have the confidence to invite other monks to watch. It's just that Zhang Chen couldn't understand. It's not a glorious thing for many righteous people to attack him at the same time. Sushan and others let the cultivators watch. Aren't they worried about bringing shame to Qiyao Sword Pavilion? After all, even if they win, it's shameful. Zhang Chen really couldn't figure it out, so he gave up and took the same step. Not far behind him, followed Nangong Juxi and others, as well as thousands of normal cultivators. The crowd finally arrived at the foot of the glacier. Sushan stood alone in front with one sword and one arm, looking full of fighting spirit. Without any hesitation, Zhang Chen stepped forward again. Seeing that the others also wanted to follow, a Tianjiao immediately stopped them and said, "The master's fighting is extraordinary. You should watch from a distance and observe quietly." Everyone thought it was okay and stopped at the same time. Nangong Juxi and others were unwilling and insisted on following, but were blocked by the Buddhist disciples of the Buddha temple. "Get out of the way." Nangong Juxi's eyes suddenly turned cold, and the innate demonic energy came out of her body and attached to the sword. Amitabha, seeing this, the first Buddhist disciple Xin clasped his hands together and said, "Donor, the demonic energy is overwhelming. Once Zhang Chen dies, let me save you once. Wait for Zhang Chen to die." After hearing these words, Zhang Lianyu and Zhang Hu's faces changed instantly. Seeing Cin's words so confidently, Zhang Lianyu remembered something. "Big brother! Be careful, the 7 stars sword!" She shouted hurriedly. The word array has not been spoken yet. Zeng! Zeng! 5 shocking sword sounds resounded through the sky. I saw 5 ancient swords hidden under the ice, under the control of Xuanhuan and others, suddenly broke through the ice. Hanging in the air, emitting dazzling sword light. At the same time, "Zhang Chen, if you don't die, the righteous path will not be at peace." Looking at Zhang Chen who had entered the array, Sushan murmured. The words fell. "Ha!" He shouted loudly. He gathered all his cultivation and controlled all his spiritual power, transforming into an illusory ancient sword, pointing directly at the sky. Zeng! The 6 ancient swords trembled at the same time. The sword light spread out, turning into a golden chain and spreading out. In just a moment, it entangled Zhang Chen's limbs and body. Then the sword light covered the sky and evolved into a giant cage, which seemed to be able to imprison the sky and the earth, and the spiritual energy inside it also stagnated. 7 stars. Sushan spoke the truth. Controlled by him, the 6 ancient swords flew into the air again, interlaced back and forth above the cage, and while slashing out several sword chi, they brought out sword light all over the sky. The sword light shone, and the color kept changing. The ancient sword was like a pen, as if it was outlining the starry sky. Wherever it went, there seemed to be starlight shining, in the shape of 7 stars, dazzling and dazzling. Finally, the ancient sword was suspended in the air, hanging above Zhang Chen's head. The thousands of sword shadows that were brought out also became extremely solid, also hanging in the air, with the sword tips pointing downwards. In just a few breaths, Zhang Chen was locked in the sword formation, with thousands of swords hanging in the air above his head. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. 9 generations of villains, the heroines have all turned evil. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 283. This is the 7 stars sword formation. A bystander monk with good vision exclaimed when he saw this. What happened to the one-on-one duel? What the hell is it to form a formation with the strength of 6 people? What's more, this is the famous sword formation of the 7 stars sword pavilion, which has the power to cross the natural chasm and cut the power of the 4th realm with Yuan Dan. Although most people don't have a good impression of Zhang Chen. But this kind of situation of outnumbering the enemy and ambushing in advance is still hard to accept. Ah! Another cultivator sighed and shook his head. The most terrifying thing about the 7 stars sword formation is that the sword light turns into a lock. This lock can lock the cultivator's spiritual energy, and there is no spare energy to use the items in the spiritual ring. Then Zhang Chen might be dead. Be more confident and get rid of the possibility. Zhang Chen is notorious. Although his death is gratifying, such behavior is not our righteous way. We, the righteous people, really can't be so shameless. Stupid. You talk about rules with the demons. Did the demons talk about rules when they killed people indiscriminately? Even so, I still feel uncomfortable. The cultivators discussed it one after another. Although there were people who agreed with this move, more people were disgusted. This is the 7 stars sword pavilion, this is the righteous way. Nangong Juxi was furious and immediately drew his sword to fight with Cin. Today's 7 stars sword pavilion really impressed me. Zhang Lianyu was also furious and was ready to self-destruct the emperor's source. A bunch of trash, if you have the guts, fight me one-on-one, Xuanhuan cursed. Xuanhuan and others had expected this situation. They knew it would happen, but they still did it. And they let many people come to watch. How could they not prepare their words? Everyone, listen to me. After knocking Nangong Juxi back with a palm, Cin said loudly. This move is indeed shameful to the righteous path, but we can't do anything about it. Zhang Chen has the support of the Zhang family, and the Juyan sect has become a demon sect to support him. If you want to kill him, only the Xianbing secret realm is the best place. If this person is not eliminated, the righteous path will not be at peace. If you want to eliminate this person, you can't look back and forth, and have any womanly kindness. Otherwise, there will be troubles. What do you think of this statement? After a short silence, many cultivators changed their minds and nodded in agreement. But there are still many cultivators with frowns, obviously still unable to accept it. Helpless, Cin had to say something shocking. If Zhang Chen was just an ordinary villain, we would not do this. But, in addition to his strong background, he is also a human holy body. Human holy body. The cultivators were instantly shocked. If this kind of physique grows up, no one can stop it. It is the nightmare of the righteous path. But the problem is, they all remember clearly that the human holy body is not Lulin on the Tianjiao list. This is the conspiracy of the Juyan demon sect, and they want to cover it up. The truth is that there is no Lulin in the world, but they just use the pseudonym Lulin. Cin roared again. After this, everyone was shocked again. After a brief surprise, everyone suddenly realized it. No wonder. No wonder they had never heard of Lulin before, but this Lulin suddenly appeared inexplicably and became the top of the Tianjiao list. Now I understand. It turns out that it is like this. Zhang Chen is Lulin. From the beginning to the end, Lulin did not exist at all. Zhang Chen is the real leader of the Tianjiao list. Thinking about it this way, it is indeed much more reasonable. Zhang Chen has the support of the Zhang family and is notorious. How could he not be on the Tianjiao list? Juyan sect fell into the demon sect, and it is probably because they discovered Zhang Chen's human holy body. They want to hold on to this thigh and win the opportunity to go to the upper domain. After thinking that they understood everything, the cultivators no longer had any contempt. Because the human holy body is too terrifying. If such a physique descends on the demon path, it will surely bring a catastrophe to the righteous path. Instead of watching it grow, it is better to lose face and find a way to kill it. To put it bluntly, this is for the world. For the future of the righteous path. In front of the two, what is the point of a mere stigma? Kill Lulin, a cultivator suddenly shouted. I've said it all, Lulin is nothing, Zhang Chen is Lulin. Do you think I don't know? Now we insist that we killed Lulin. If the Fengling Zhang family takes revenge later, we can also shirk responsibility. That makes sense. If Lulin doesn't die, the righteous path will not be at peace. Lulin is a villain, I didn't expect you to have this day. I don't know any Zhang Chen, I only know that Lulin is a disaster for the central region, and his crimes should be punished. The Qiyao Sword Pavilion is a righteous path, and it doesn't hesitate to tarnish its feathers. It is indeed a model of the righteous path. The other cultivators also echoed. Seeing this, Zhang Lianyu and Zhang Hu were directly confused. Zhang Chen likes to use the alias Lulin? Zhang Chen is Lulin? How come they don't know about this? Nangong Juxi nodded, as if she understood why Zhang Chen liked to say that he was Lulin. On the other hand, Zhang Chen was even more confused. Inexplicably, he became the holy body of the human race and the top of the Tianjiao list. Heaven and earth. He doesn't even know who Lulin is. Seeing Zhang Chen's wooden face, Xuanhuan smiled proudly. Zhang Chen, although you hid it very well, I still figured out the mystery. I have to say, you hid it very deeply. Zhang Chen was speechless. Without wasting any more words, Xuanhuan moved his mind, raised his arm and swung it down, and whispered the word go. Zeng. The sound of swords resounded through the sky. 5 ancient swords suspended in the air, and thousands of spiritual swords formed by sword shadows, mixed with irresistible sword power, stabbed down from the sky like rain. The dense and dazzling sword light. This scene was in my eyes. Zhang Chen. Big brother. Big brother. Nangong Juxi, Zhang Lianyu, and Zhang Hu roared with a cracked roar. While roaring, they rushed forward like crazy, but were blocked by the sword formation. Just when the 3 of them were desperate. Cry. The phoenix rang in the sky. The phoenix fire was like a garment, instantly wrapping Zhang Chen, and its scorching temperature immediately burned the golden lock transformed by the sword light. Facing the thousands of swords in the sky, Zhang Chen did not dodge or avoid, but flicked his 2 fingers slightly, and 6 clusters of phoenix fire came out from his fingertips, flying to the location of Xuanhuan and other 6 swordsmen. The phoenix fire came quickly, and Xuanhuan looked panicked. He couldn't understand it at all. He couldn't understand why Zhang Chen could call upon the phoenix fire when his spiritual energy was locked up. He couldn't understand even more. Why did Zhang Chen know it? The 6 swordsmen couldn't move when setting up the formation. As long as one of them moved, the 7 stars sword formation would collapse in the riot. At this moment, a difficult choice was placed in front of Xuanhuan. 1. If he stayed where he was, he would die, but the rain of swords would also pierce Zhang Chen. The 2 of them would die together at worst. 2. Just run away. Both of them could survive. But doing so would cause the sword formation to collapse in the riot. During this period, at least 30% of the innocent monks around would die under the rioting rain of swords. Let me see what you call the righteous path. Zhang Chen's words came. Hearing this, Xuanhuan's body trembled. Forget it, he closed his eyes and waited for death. He adhered to the righteous path and practiced swords for 20 years, and he had never been ashamed of it. This time, he was instigated by his fellow disciples to use the short-handed tactics of outnumbering and ambushing Zhang Chen, and he felt guilty about it. If he implicated innocent monks, he would be really guilty. Moreover, if he could drag Zhang Chen to death, it would not be considered a disgrace to the 7 Light Sword Pavilion. But this was just his wishful thinking. Because in the face of the rapidly approaching phoenix fire, Xuanhuan, who had once shouted good and evil cannot coexist and good and evil are mortal enemies, actually took the first step. 9 generations of villains, the heroines have all turned evil. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 284. When Sword 2 moved, all the other swords except Xuanhuan moved. At the same time. Bang! The spiritual energy of the sword formation was rioting, making a dull explosion sound. The thousands of sword shadows that were originally controlled by Xuanhuan were out of control in an instant, and then rioted, starting to attack indiscriminately from top to bottom. There were only swish, swish sounds. The several monks who were watching had not yet reacted to what happened, and their chests were pierced by sword shadows. Blood gushed out like water, and they died in an instant. The sword formation is rioting, run, a monk shouted angrily. But he just took a step, and he felt that his ankles seemed to be tied by something. He looked down. He was immediately sweating. It turned out that the sword light produced by the 5 ancient swords was also in riot. The sword light turned into a lock, spreading like branches and leaves, binding everything that could be seen in the field of vision. The monk struggled with all his might, but because his spiritual power was locked, he could only watch a sword shadow fall and then pierce through his body. I'm not willing, the monk shouted angrily before falling to the ground. He really was not willing. He was just a bystander. I thought that this time, I could witness Zhang Chen's death by thousands of swords piercing his heart, but who would have thought that he would die? If he died in the hands of the devil, it would be fine. but his end was to die because of a fellow Taoist. The sword shadow continued to fall, and the range of the sword light lock was gradually expanding. In just a few minutes, hundreds of monks died under the sword shadows. Nangong Juxi could barely resist with his own strength. But Zhang Lianyu, who could not use his cultivation for the time being, and Zhang Hu, who had a lower cultivation, were unable to deal with the violent sword shadows. The two were also locked by the sword light, and several sword shadows attacked above their heads. Seeing this, Nangong Juxi stepped forward quickly, cut off the golden lock on Zhang Lianyu with a sword, and saved her life. "Thank you," Zhang Lianyu said. "Don't thank me. If I hadn't seen you often with Zhang Chen, I wouldn't bother to care about your life or death." Nangong Juxi looked like a rival in love. "Don't worry," Zhang Lianyu smiled, "no one can replace your position in Zhang Chen's heart." "Does he like me very much?" Nangong Juxi's eyes lit up. Zhang Lianyu didn't reply to this. In fact, she didn't know how Zhang Chen felt about Nangong Juxi. The only thing she knew was 9 reincarnations. Nangong Juxi was one of the few people who stood firmly beside Zhang Chen. Although the existence of this woman was deliberately arranged by God, and the red line of their fate was also connected by God. Its purpose was to make Zhang Chen more of a villain. But it is undeniable. Only in front of Nangong Juxi could Zhang Chen feel care and heart palpitations. Perhaps, this is destiny. Unfortunately, in the previous 9 lives, Zhang Chen rebelled against his own fate. And what choice will Zhang Chen make in this life? Zhang Lianyu didn't know this, and Xiao Hong'ai and others didn't know it either. In any case, in terms of qualifications, Nangong Juxi is indeed the only one who is qualified to accompany Zhang Chen until old age. "Fifth senior sister, save me." Just as Zhang Lianyu was thinking, Zhang Hu begged. "Without being able to use my cultivation, it is already my limit to evade on my own. So, come on." Zhang Lianyu said she was powerless. Helplessly, Zhang Hu looked at Nangong Juxi again. "The only man I can save is Zhang Chen," Nangong Juxi replied in seconds. Zhang Hu was instantly desperate. Looking at the sword shadow above his head, his face was pale and his eyes were filled with tears. "I aspired to become a master of poison, but I didn't expect to die here." "Stop complaining here." Zhang Chen's words suddenly rang out. "The sword light turns into a lock, and it becomes stronger when it encounters a strong opponent. 7 sections form a lock. You give up resistance first, and then use all your cultivation to attack the 7th section of the golden lock. This lock will automatically release." The situation was critical, and Zhang Hu hurriedly followed the instructions. As expected. After he gave up resistance, the golden lock chain transformed by the sword light actually weakened the binding force. And when he used all his cultivation to attack the 7th section of the golden lock, he heard a click sound, and the golden lock that was wrapped around him actually broke by itself. "Brother, you are too awesome, right?" Zhang Hu was full of admiration. Zhang Chen did not reply, but just rolled his eyes. The 7 Stars Sword Formation is a famous sword formation of the 7 Stars Sword Pavilion. Only the 7 stars and 6 sword masters and 5 sword masters can form this sword formation. In the 9 reincarnations, he could even break the 7 stars sword formation set up by 5 sword masters, let alone this. Moreover, in the absence of an ancient sword, although Sushan and others can still form the formation, the power of the formation is obviously weakened. "You retreat further," Zhang Chen ordered. Although Nangong Juxi and others were a little worried, they still followed the order. After his people walked away, Zhang Chen held the blood sword and walked towards the Buddhist disciples of the Buddha temple. His figure was like a ghost, 3 steps turned into 2 steps, and he stepped out a green lotus with each step, as if he could predict the landing point of each sword shadow in advance, and the rain of swords in the sky could not touch him. Came in front of Cin. At this time, Cin and many other monks were also struggling to resist the sword rain. "Zhang Chen. Don't come over here. After the sword formation is defeated, let's have a fair fight to the death. Cin panicked in an instant. Bald donkey, don't you know, Zhang Chen sneered, to add insult to injury, to take advantage of the situation, to take advantage of the situation, these are all basic things to me. Cin was speechless. No more nonsense. Zhang Chen raised his hand and slashed out a bloody sword energy wrapped in phoenix fire. The sword energy traveled through the air and quickly arrived in front of Cin. There was a rain of swords from the sky, and there was a very lethal sword energy in front of him. Cin jumped to his feet anxiously, gritting his teeth. The Dharma in his body was operating at full strength, turning into a golden body more than 10 feet tall, and punched the incoming sword energy with all his strength. Zhang Chen only used 30% of his strength with this sword, so he was quickly blown away by the power of the fist. But just this moment, several sword shadows poured down. Even though Cin tried his best to avoid it, his limbs were still pierced. He knelt down on one knee and his golden body collapsed. Zhang Chen took a step forward, put the blood sword on Cin's neck, and asked, "Are you responsible for the injuries on Nangang Juxi's body?" At this time, Cin's face was as sinking as water, and his blemishes were about to burst. Sensing the general's murderous intent, he wanted to deny it. But he also knew that Zhang Chen was asking questions knowingly. After all, the scars left by Buddhism can be seen at a glance. Since it was death anyway, Cin was completely willing to risk his life. Ha ha ha. He laughed wildly, and his face no longer looked like a monk, instead it was full of ferocity. He stood up suddenly and shouted one after another. "Zhang Chen, I might as well tell you. Not only did I hurt Nangang Juxi, I have also been chasing this witch since entering the secret realm. If you want to blame it, blame this witch for insisting on standing up for you. That's what happened at the time. While Nangang Juxi and Sushin were fighting, I took the opportunity to slap Nangang Juxi on the back. This palm made her vomit 3 liters of blood. If Sushin hadn't stopped in time, this girl would have died. Now that I think about it, I should have been more ruthless. It would be best to kill him with one palm. I have to say that you two are both evil in the world, and you are truly a perfect match. They're just a couple." The words are not finished yet. A streak of bloody sword light appeared at Cin's neck, and blood immediately surged out. Holding his neck, Cin seemed to want to say something, but he could only spit out thick blood, and soon fell to his knees, completely losing his life. "Buddhist? Buddhist monk? That's it," Zhang Chen sneered. 9 generations of villains, the heroines have all turned evil. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 285. With Cin's death, the violent rain of swords finally dissipated completely. The ground was devastated at this time. In the originally crowded environment, there were only many monks who died with their eyes open, and the slightly exhausted Tianxiao. Blood flowed along the corpses of the monks, gathered into a river, and stained the surrounding ground. Such a situation, coupled with the increasingly bright red blood, made the environment in the secret realm even more weird. Seeing Cin die in Zhang Chen's hands, the Tianjiao were furious. But they knew very well. Even if they all went together, they were not Zhang Chen's opponent. So they all chose at the same time. Escape. Escape at the fastest speed. Otherwise, Cin will be a lesson for you. Do I agree that you can leave? Zhang Chen looked around coldly. Cry. At the same time, the sound of the phoenix rose again. The phoenix fire came out of his body, turning into a phantom of a male phoenix, spreading its wings and flying. In just a moment, a wall of fire was erected around them, preventing all the Tianjiao from escaping. After looking at each other in bewilderment, the other Tianjiao of Buddha temple turned into golden bodies, intending to fight to the death. The 5 swordsmen of Qiyao Sword Pavilion jumped up, caught the 5 ancient swords that fell from the sky, and stood around Zhang Chen in a circle. Zhang Chen, are you going to kill them all today? Xuanhuan spoke first. Kill them all? Zhang Chen sneered again. The Tianjiao joined forces to lure him into a trap. The 6 swordsmen of Qiyao Sword Pavilion set up the Qiyao Sword formation to kill him. And after his death, I believe that whether it is Nangong Juxi, Zhang Lianyu, or Zhang Hu, they should not be able to escape death. Isn't this killing them all? Only allow yourself to kill all, and not allow others to resist. What is the reason? We, the Tianjiao, will fight to the death together. Even if you win, it will be a miserable victory. Why don't we all take a step back and leave today's matter here? Xuanhuan asked again. Nothing. Zhang Chen shook his head, but I have a suggestion. It depends on whether you are willing. Let's talk about it, Xuanhuan asked. Except for the Buddha disciples of the Buddha Temple and the 6 sword disciples of the 7 Light Sword Pavilion. The rest of you, I will give you a chance to commit suicide, Zhang Chen blurted out. Commit suicide? Isn't this still death? The Tianjiao's faces sank at the same time. We may not be your opponents, but we are all Tianjiao from various sects in the central region, Xuanhuan said again with a gloomy face. Have you thought about the consequences of killing us all? Amitabha. Zhang Chen, do you really think you are invincible in the world? A Buddhist disciple of the Buddha temple stepped out, put his hands together, and uttered Buddhist sounds. Seeing that he was talking nonsense again, Zhang Hu felt that his chance to show off had come. He walked quickly to Zhang Chen's side, folded his arms, and sneered, invincible in the world? Wrong, totally wrong. Under the upper 4 realms, my senior brother is not only invincible in this world. Invincible in all 10 worlds. Invincible in all 10 worlds. What a big tone. All the Tianjiao cursed in their hearts. Although they all felt that this boast was too much, no one dared to question it out loud. The atmosphere suddenly became silent. A Tianjiao suddenly stepped out and bowed. Zhang Chen, I didn't do anything to Nangong Juxi, can you spare my life? Oh. Hearing this, Zhang Chen looked at Nangong Juxi. At this time, Nangong Juxi was still in shock and happiness. She came with Zhang Chen, and didn't know what Zhang Chen wanted to do. It was not until Cin died that she knew. It turned out that Zhang Chen wanted to help her get revenge. In order to help her get revenge, Zhang Chen knew it was a trap, but still went there. In order to help her get revenge, Zhang Chen wanted to kill people and fight against all the Tianjiaos by himself. How could she not be moved by this? Seeing Zhang Chen looking at her, Nangong Juxi glanced at the Tianjiao who spoke, and then nodded. The memory of the cultivator was very good. She clearly remembered that this person was not among the Tianjiaos who had fought with her. Let's go. After getting a response, Zhang Chen waved his hand. As soon as the voice fell, the wall formed by the raging phoenix fire actually opened a gap by itself, allowing the Tianjiao who spoke to leave. The Tianjiao was like being pardoned, and after thanking him, he wanted to leave. But he took just one step. An ancient sword suddenly attacked and pierced his chest. He turned his head with difficulty, full of horror. He never expected it anyway. He didn't die in the hands of Zhang Chen, but died in the hands of the second swordsman of the Qiyao Sword Pavilion, Xuanhuan. Second senior brother. Are you crazy? Jianlu exclaimed in disbelief. The other Tianjiaos also cast questioning eyes at Xuanhuan. Faced with a powerful enemy, if the others also learn from this person and give in to Zhang Chen, then we will surely die, Xuanhuan said calmly after pulling back the ancient sword. Seeing that everyone still couldn't accept it, he said again, I am a righteous man and never afraid of death. Zhang Chen has only 2 choices, either let us all go, or perish with us. After hearing this, all Tianjiaos were silent. They understood what Xuanhuan meant. The situation was critical at this time. If one person escaped, the others would follow suit. At that time, once people's hearts were scattered, how could they fight against Zhang Chen? Although it was still difficult to accept, they also understood the current situation. The best way was to hold together tightly and let Zhang Chen consider the consequences of killing them all. Or, everyone would go all out and fight to the death. Otherwise, everyone will die. For a moment, everyone was silent. When Zhang Chen saw this scene, he looked disdainful. Regardless of whether they are good or evil, they all have troublemakers. This sword too may sound grand, but it is nothing more than a hypocrite. The rest of the geniuses knew that this was wrong, but still chose to remain silent, which also proves they are all a bunch of hypocrites. Forget it, today, I will go on a killing spree, Zhang Chen said in a vicious voice, with phoenix fire fluttering all over his body. All the geniuses felt as if they were facing a formidable enemy. A war between the two parties is about to break out. And just as the bloody sword trembled in Zhang Chen's hand, it was already the time when the blood was shining brightly. A one-armed figure silently came to Zhang Chen's side. The person who came was silent, holding a high-grade spiritual weapon, his eyes were bloodshot, and his body was shaking uncontrollably. He is none other than Xuanhuan. Looking at the talented people, Xuanhuan shouted in a trembling voice, "You are waiting, you are in vain. Today, I will clean up the house." Looking at Xuanhuan, he said again. The appearance of Xuanhuan shocked all the geniuses. What he said made people feel like they were struck by lightning. "Eldest brother? Are you crazy enough to stump him? How can you help the enemy in front of us?" In shock, Xuanhuan yelled. Although Zhang Chen is strong, if they go together and give it a try, maybe they can still have a chance of survival. But what if we add Xuanhuan, who is second on the list of geniuses? That's completely cool. Am I crazy? Or are you crazy? Xuanhuan lost his composure and shouted back, "Open your eyes and look. How many innocent monks died because you left the formation without authorization? You keep saying that you do not forget the right path, but where is the right path in your heart? What does this have to do with me?" Xuanhuan was dissatisfied. If Zhang Chen hadn't seen through the mystery of the Qi Yao sword formation and released the phoenix fire on me, how could such a tragic situation have happened? All of this is because of Zhang Chen. Senior brother, don't make the mistake of yourself. It's so stubborn, Xuanhuan yelled. He no longer talked nonsense with Xuanhuan, but rushed forward with his sword and started fighting. This made the other geniuses look confused. How can we start internal strife when we have a formidable enemy? And Zhang Chen? I thought this drama was good, so I started to enjoy it. Xuanhuan, attack him. Yes, that's it. Although Sword 2 is equally accomplished in swordsmanship, his background is not as good as yours. Be careful, he wants to launch a sneak attack. Jian Liu, get out of my way. Whoever dares to start a fight, I will kill him first. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. 9 generations of villains, the heroines have all turned evil. Author, Tuo. Chapter 286. In the end, Xuanhuan was defeated by Xuanhuan. It's not because of lack of strength, but because Xuanhuan spent a lot of spiritual energy when setting up the formation. And although he said he wanted to clean up the family, he still couldn't bear to kill his fellow students. Of course, one hand is missing. Haha. Diamond suit. Xuanhuan sheathed his sword and took out his palm, knocking Xuanhuan several feet away before letting out a wild laugh. After spitting out a mouthful of dirty blood, Xuanhuan fell to the ground. He was not unconscious, but lying on the ground, his eyes dull, as if he was doubting his life. This made Xuanhuan laugh even more. How many years? Ever since Xuanhuan became the second sword master of Qiyao Sword Pavilion, he has been suppressed by Xuanhuan. At this moment, I am finally proud. Xuanhuan did not make a killing move because he knew very well. If Xuanhuan is killed now, even if he can survive from Zhang Chen, Qiyao Sword Pavilion will not let him go. Looking at Zhang Chen, Xuanhuan said, "Zhang Chen, you are so arrogant. If you and Xuanhuan had taken action together just now, we would have been unable to support you. But at this moment, Xuanhuan has been defeated. You are facing everyone." "Zhang Chen, it's still too late to let us go now," a Buddhist disciple from the Buddha temple answered. In response, Zhang Chen just smiled. "Now that we have seen enough drama, the only thing left to do is to kill someone." He stood with his sword behind his back and narrowed his eyes slightly. A strong sword intent came out of his body and shot straight into the sky like a sword. "Everyone, be careful, this is the ancient kendo." Zhang Chen wants to release the ancient kendo again. Upon seeing this, Jianlu immediately shouted. Hearing this, all the geniuses felt like they were facing a powerful enemy. The ancient swordsmanship has extraordinary lethality, and all the swordsmen in Qiyao Sword Pavilion are very clear about this. The matter has come to this, the only option is to fight to the death. While he is brewing his sword intention, I will take action at the same time, Xuanhuan shouted. "Say it." He stepped forward with his sword, swung the ancient sword in his hand, and cut out a sword energy with obvious sword intent. Upon seeing this, the remaining swordsmen were not to be outdone, and used their strongest blows to attack Zhang Chen. Amitabha. "Zhang Chen, you killed several Buddhist disciples in our Buddha temple. Good and evil will eventually be punished. Even the Buddha cannot tolerate you today." Several Buddhist disciples murmured in unison. While speaking, the monks had transformed into a golden body, like a great Buddha, standing in a world of white snow. They knew that their skills were restricted by Zhang Chen, so they did not step forward. Instead, they uttered Buddhist sounds in unison, and then controlled the Buddhist sounds to turn into a majestic golden mountain of Buddhist Dharma, pressing down on Zhang Chen from top to bottom. The war had begun, and the other geniuses did not dare to hesitate any longer, and also took action immediately. Attacks were coming from all directions, and every move was powerful and murderous. But facing this situation, Zhang Chen still stood quietly. It wasn't until a sword energy arrived in front of him that he suddenly opened his eyes. At the same time, roar! The flame blood dragon sword trembled violently, and its blood light condensed into a blood dragon, spiraling up and looking down at all living beings. The phoenix fire flutters, and the phantom of the phoenix appears. The sound of the sword shook the sky, and the virtual image of an old man with a white beard appeared behind him. At this moment, the vision came out. The dragon and phoenix are in the sky, and the old man is behind. The spiritual energy fluctuations caused by the three of them made the entire void tremble. Zhang Chen raised his hand. Dragons and phoenixes soar, and the old man wields his sword. Zhang Chen slashed out with his sword. The sword energy transformed into a dragon, 100 feet long, and the phoenix fire enveloped the dragon's body, just like a blood dragon bathing in fire. The fire-blooded dragon roared away, its body winding and its teeth bared. The numerous sword energies that came towards him were burned and dissipated by the phoenix fire before they even touched the fire dragon's body. Before the mountain of gold condensed by Buddhist teachings in the sky could be pressed down, it was split open by the chaotic sword intent around the fire dragon, and then collapsed. Roar! The blood dragon opened its bloody mouth and swallowed all the way. Regardless of spiritual energy, ice, or snow, anyone who comes into contact with it will turn into nothingness. The first people who came into contact with him were several unknown geniuses who had jumped in front of Zhang Chen and were about to kill him. The moment the fire dragon appeared, These geniuses were blown away by the violent aura, burned into black ash by the phoenix fire in the air, and fell with heavy snow from the sky. The holy body of the human race, with thousands of techniques added to it. Integrate thousands of techniques and create one of your own. Seeing this, Xuanhuan looked horrified. This is no longer the ancient sword way, but the self-created ancient sword style. Are you awesome? Zhang Hu was puzzled and asked Zhang Lianyu. At this time, the battle situation was stalemate. Zhang Lianyu was too lazy to pay attention to him, and just shouted, "Elder brother is so handsome." The same was true for Nangang Juxi, but she felt it was necessary to educate Zhang Hu about it. After all, as Zhang Chen's younger brother, how could he be so lacking in discernment? It's very awesome. Nangang Juxi looked straight and explained one after another. Blood sword, phoenix fire, and ancient swordsmanship. Zhang Chen's cultivation level cannot completely control these three. But he is a human saint. The human race's holy body is infused with all the Dharma. This so-called Dharma is also praised. There are thousands of avenues, and many monks can't crack one of them throughout their lives. The holy body of the human race has access to all ways, but it cannot follow all ways. People with this kind of physique can work together on their own, form their own laws and rules. Therefore, they are not restricted by bottlenecks or common sense. Zhang Chen integrated phoenix fire and blood sword shadow into the ancient swordsmanship and created another ancient sword style. With such talent and understanding, even if the Qi Yao sword ancestor comes, I can only feel inferior. Speaking of which, Nangang Juxi paused, raised his head to the sky, and asked, "Have you ever heard of the saying, under the way of heaven, the holy body walks alone, and when the world is in disaster, the human race will prosper? Under the way of heaven, the holy body walks alone, and when the world is in disaster, the human race will prosper." Zhang Hu shook his head, indicating that he had never heard of it. Although he had never heard of it, just saying it made people feel very awesome. It's just a rumor. It is said that there is a holy body of the human race in every big world. Recalling the contents of the ancient books of the sect, Nangang Juxi explained in detail, the holy body of the human race walks between heaven and earth, unnoticed by anyone, and not bound by any rules. Only when the way of heaven collapses and there are great disasters in the world, the holy body of the human race will appear to stabilize the prosperity of the human race. When Zhang Hu heard this, his face turned pale instantly. What does it mean? It means that the way of heaven has collapsed now, so Zhang Chen awakened the holy body of the human race? It means that there will be great disasters in the world? That's not the end. He finally understood at this moment. No wonder no one had discovered Zhang Chen's human holy body before. It turned out to be because of the holy body walking alone. The question at this moment is, where is the great disaster? There must be some signs, right? Zhang Hu suddenly glanced at Zhang Lianyu, and thought of the crazy people in Yugui sect and Hanjing city. He suddenly realized. The great disaster is just around the corner. It should be a madness without any signs, sweeping the world. Thinking of this, Zhang Hu suddenly felt much more reasonable. No wonder there are more and more crazy people. He thought that these crazy people were all driven crazy by Zhang Chen. Who would have thought that it was a natural disaster? And Zhang Chen, who was misunderstood as the culprit by him, is the hope to save this natural disaster. Wu senior brother, I misunderstood you. Zhang Hu burst into tears. At this moment, he looked at Zhang Chen as if he saw the light. 9 generations of villains, the heroines have all turned evil. Author, Fu Zituo. Chapter 287. Although Zhang Chen didn't care about the discussion of Zhang Hu and others, he still heard it clearly. Then, speechless for a while. His family knows his own affairs, and he knows very well that he is not a human saint at all. The reason why the power of the blood sword, phoenix fire, and ancient swordsmanship can be integrated is just because thanks to the system, the three do not need to reach the standard of cultivation, but they can still be used and mastered skillfully, and there is a flash of inspiration. But Jiang Chen smiled slyly. It is indeed a good idea to blame all the madness of many monks on natural disasters. Too lazy to care about this, he stood there, his face full of indifference, but actually he was a little panicked in his heart. He didn't expect it either. This self-made ancient sword almost drained all his spiritual energy. If he hadn't forcibly stabilized his body at this moment, he would have had to lie down. But the power of this self-created ancient sword style far exceeded his imagination. Compared with one ancient sword style, breaking the sky, the power is definitely much stronger. Although it doesn't have the intuitive destructive power of breaking the sky, the point is that it can change its direction on its own. Now, Xuanhuan and the others knew that they couldn't survive the blow from the front, so they were running around. The fire dragon, as if it had intelligence, was chasing after him from behind, spitting out scorching flames from time to time, which made Xuanhuan and others jump. When no one was paying attention, Jiang Chen quietly threw a pill into his mouth and thought to himself, this sword style will be named Second Ancient Sword Style, Dragon Roar, and Phoenix Chirp. Bang! Bang! Several explosions suddenly sounded. Jiang Chen followed the sound and saw that it was the second-class swordsmen. In order to save their lives, they blew up their ancient swords one after another, hoping to get rid of the fire dragon behind them. The effect is there, but still not big. The first one to explode the ancient sword was Xuanhuan. With the help of the impact, he not only wanted to get rid of the fire dragon behind him, but also wanted to turn around and kill Jiang Chen. The idea was good, but he overestimated his own strength. Before he could take action, Xuanhuan was slapped on the cheek by a huge dragon tail. While his body was spinning in the air, he immediately vomited 3 liters of blood. Then by coincidence, he finally knelt down on one knee and landed in front of Jiang Chen. Xuanhuan looked up. Jiang Chen lowered his head and looked down. Jiang Chen. Xuanhuan. The two looked at each other, and the atmosphere was slightly awkward. Jiang Chen. Xuanhuan opened his mouth to ask for mercy. I poke. Jiang Chen stabbed with the sword. Xuanhuan had no time to escape, and no energy left to escape. He felt a sharp pain in his chest, and then his heart was pierced by the blood sword. Jiang Chen, you don't deserve to die. Before he died, Xuanhuan cursed. Maybe looking at Xuanhuan's body, Jiang Chen sneered, but if you want to die, it's not that easy. After saying this, he turned his right hand. Suddenly, a ghostly atmosphere filled the air, and the surroundings were cold and gloomy. In the ghost aura, a smaller version of the ghost control tower appeared in his hand. Jiang Chen used the ghost method to refine Xuanhuan's soul before it could be broken down into ghosts, and finally locked him up in the ghost control tower. Zhu Food Ad 1. After everything was done, Jiang Chen cast his inspection gaze into the distance. Under the fire dragon's pursuit and the phoenix fire wall, the other geniuses did not hold out for long. It takes less than a moment. Many geniuses were collectively buried in the phoenix fire, and several swordsmen were directly pierced by the claws of the fire dragon and were already dying. Although these people are not in the upper fourth realm, they are still a rare ration for Xuanhuan. While these people's spirits were still lingering, Jiang Chen threw the ghost control tower out. The ghost control tower grew larger during the rotation, and then hit the ground heavily. Jiang Chen used the ghost method again, and the souls of several geniuses were sucked into the ghost control tower. This is the sacred weapon of the ghost control sect. The ghost control tower, upon seeing this, a Buddhist disciple turned pale in an instant. If the Buddha temple and the ghost control sect don't deal with it, they will naturally recognize this ghost tower that is specially used to control ghosts and educate ghosts. They know it very well. If they are admitted to the ghost control tower, what awaits them is to become ghost puppets. But, Zhang Chen, even if I die, I will not live up to your wishes. Put down this sentence. Just hearing a few bang, bang, bang sounds, all the Buddhist disciples in the Buddha temple collectively exploded, and their bodies and souls were scattered. The swordsmen also had the idea of self-destruction, but in the end they were a step too late. They were instantly killed by the phoenix fire produced by the fire dragon, and were later absorbed by the ghost control tower. Zhu Shuang's rations have increased again. At the same time, the war ended. Although it was a big battle, from the beginning to the end, Zhang Chen only made one move. But just this move killed many geniuses. The onlookers who had survived the sword formation riot couldn't help but swallow their saliva when they saw this scene. They were shocked by Zhang Chen's fighting power, and even more shocked by Zhang Chen's courage. The rest of the geniuses were fine, but Zhang Chen killed all the Buddhists in the Buddha temple and many swordsmen in the Qiyao sword pavilion. What he did was tantamount to piercing the sky. Although Zhang Chen has the Zhang family as his backstage, this is the middle domain, not the upper domain. With the imperial decree in front of them, how dare the Zhang family boldly enter the central territory to protect Zhang Chen? Even if the Zhang family is not afraid, they dare to disobey the imperial decree. At that time, let's not say how the dynasty will act, but let's talk about it. Do not forget. The two first-class sects, Qiyao Sword Pavilion and Buddha Temple, are also related to the forces in the upper domain. When the time comes, it is still unclear who will win. Worried that Zhang Chen planned to silence him to avoid further trouble, the onlookers did not dare to stay any longer and rushed toward the exit of the Xianbing secret realm. They all decided secretly. When I leave this time, I must report Zhang Chen's actions and the fact that it is the human race's holy body to the sect. These things are of great importance, and if you can bring out the news, it will also be considered a credit. Seeing what these people were thinking, Nangong Juxi walked away with a sword, intending to kill them all. But Zhang Chen suddenly appeared and blocked her way. They must die, otherwise you will have a difficult time in the central territory in the future. Nangong Juxi was puzzled. This matter is inevitable. Zhang Chen shook his head. There have been onlookers who have left the secret realm a long time ago. Even if you kill them, it will not help. Nangong Juxi was silent. She suddenly realized that she seemed to have implicated Zhang Chen. If she hadn't chased Sushan and his group and got injured as a result, Zhang Chen wouldn't have helped her take revenge, and naturally he wouldn't be in this situation now. Am I wrong? Nangong Juxi asked. Juxi, in this world, right and wrong are not so clear. Zhang Chen sighed. Perhaps your biggest mistake is meeting me. Nangong Juxi was silent again. She couldn't understand, but she could feel Zhang Chen's helplessness. For a moment, she froze on the spot. Why? Zhang Chen didn't know what to say, so he had to go to Sushan's location. At this moment, Sushan was still lying quietly on the ground, his eyes dull. Although he did not take any action, he could sense the death of his junior brothers. Seeing Zhang Chen approaching, he just whispered, "Kill me." Zhang Chen didn't reply, dropped a healing pill and left. In the first 9 lives, he had a good relationship with Sushan. Basically, the two would start fighting as soon as they met, and each would win or lose. But in this life, Zhang Chen suddenly discovered. Although this Sushan was also influenced by God, he was extremely displeased. But this person always sticks to his heart and is a truly righteous gentleman. 9 generations of villains, the heroines have all turned evil. Author, Fu Zituo. Chapter 288. The exit of Xianbing's secret realm is located in Qingyun City. Unlike Hanjing City, Qingyun City is located in the ancient forest road, where it is spring-like all year round, with birds singing and flowers blooming. The city lord of Qingyun City is named Meng Lang, who is over 50 years old, obese, and pot-bellied. At this moment, in the city lord's mansion, Meng Lang stood in the middle of the hall with his head down. His fat hands that had nowhere to go and his head covered in cold sweat were enough to prove. At this moment, he was panicking. His panic came from 2 points. First, Meng Lang and Meng Hong, the city lord of Hanjing City, are brothers. As early as more than 10 days ago, he had learned that Meng Hong was half crazy and behaved strangely. What happened in Hanjing City? Since the content of Meng Hong's message was all crazy talk, Meng Lang didn't know. But he was sure. Meng Hong was half crazy because of Zhang Chen. After all, the rumor that wherever Zhang Chen goes, people go crazy is well known at this time. And now, Zhang Chen has entered the secret realm. This also means that as long as Zhang Chen leaves the secret realm, he will go to Qingyuan City. At that time, the entire Qingyuan City may follow the footsteps of Hanjing City, and many crazy monks will appear, and he, the city lord, may not be able to escape. After learning all this, Meng Lang's first reaction was to close the teleportation array. But he didn't dare. Because in addition to Zhang Chen, there are many geniuses in the secret realm. Locking all these geniuses in the secret realm will undoubtedly arouse the anger of many sects. Since becoming the lord of Qingyuan City, Meng Lang has been walking on thin ice and being cautious. He doesn't want to make enemies with many sects for no reason. And just when Meng Lang was going all out and planned to leave the city first and go out to avoid the wind, the second situation that made him panic appeared. More than 10 days ago, a woman holding a red paper fan and bringing a strong ghost aura wherever she went came to Qingyuan City. After learning this news, Meng Lang was like facing a great enemy. He knew it very well. Ghosts that can appear in the daytime and have a solid ghost body are definitely not good people. He wanted to stop the female ghost from entering the city, but it was too late. After paying enough spirit crystals, the female ghost had already entered the city. Meng Lang led a group of soldiers to block them, but recognized at a glance. This ghost is the ghost master of Ghost Ridge Soul Abyss, Sui. Sui is in the realm of supernatural powers. Meng Lang can't do it, so he had to smile and be good, and honestly invited Sui to rest in the city lord's mansion. The good news is, since arriving in Qingyuan City, Sui seems to be waiting for something and rarely goes out, which makes Meng Lang breathe a sigh of relief. The bad news is, since Sui, the sword ancestor of the 7 Yao Sword Pavilion and the Buddha Patriarch have arrived one after another, Meng Lang can't do it with these two people, so he had to smile and be good, and invited them into the city lord's mansion. Then, after seeing Sui, the 7 Yao Sword ancestor and the Buddha Patriarch wanted to fight immediately. Meng Lang had to persuade and beg for mercy before he managed to stabilize the two parties. He knew very well that if he was not the city lord appointed by the dynasty, the aftermath of the battle between the two parties might have directly destroyed Qingyuan City. Meng Lang thought that this matter was over, but it was actually just the beginning. A few days later, the two ancestors of the Wandao demon sect arrived and entered the city lord's mansion without invitation, and almost had a fight with the two righteous ancestors. Meng Lang begged for mercy again, and finally managed to stabilize the situation. It was also at this time that he finally understood why so many big men gathered in Qingyuan City. So, after the two righteous ancestors and the 3 demon big men fought in Hanjing City, they left because they could not decide the winner. Sui came here to wait for Zhang Chen. The 10,000 ghosts came out of the abyss with great momentum, and many ghosts devoured people. She didn't want to be blocked by the righteous path again, so she came alone on purpose. The 7 Light Sword ancestor and the Buddha Temple ancestor came here to wait for the Tianjiao of their own sect. The reason why the 2 ancestors of the Wandao demon sect came here was naturally to take Nangong Juxi, who had left the sect without permission, out. If it were normal, such a matter of welcoming the Tianjiao of the sect would naturally not require the 2 ancestors to come in person. But this time the Xuanmi realm was extremely abnormal. First of all, various deeds proved that the place where Zhang Chen appeared would become abnormal. Secondly, even if they were outside the secret realm, the ancestors could feel the thunder and the violent monster breath in the secret realm. The Tianjiao were all treasures of their respective sects, and they had nothing to do anyway, so the ancestors came here specially. In the past, Meng Lang, as the city lord of Qingyun City, had a very comfortable life. But since all these big guys came here, he has lost several pounds. When the big guys met each other and talked nonsense. In order to prevent the situation from escalating further, he must dissuade them with a very humble attitude. When the righteous and evil bosses brag about each other's business and each brags about the other's strength, he must be like a fool, constantly expressing his approval, and he cannot agree too much, otherwise it will surely cause dissatisfaction from the other boss. He even takes care of the food, clothing, and daily life of the bosses himself. The reason for this is not that he must do it, but he is worried about leaving it to others. He is worried that if these bosses are unhappy, they will destroy his Qingyun city. Such days are hard enough, right? But Meng Lang never expected that more difficult days are still to come. A few days ago, Zhang Chen's protectors Chen Sheng and Xiao Hong'ai arrived and also entered the city lord's mansion without invitation. Chen Sheng was once the third ancestor of the Wandao demon sect, and he did not expect to meet his former brothers and sisters here. The three of them immediately cried and lamented that time had passed and things had changed. The crying lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. The monks and mortals in Qingyun City were so frightened that they thought it was haunted. Until the 4th night. The 7 light sword ancestor and the Buddha temple ancestor were annoyed and complained a few words, but who knew that Chen Sheng and the other 3 rolled up their sleeves and were ready to fight. Helplessly, Meng Lang didn't even have time to put on his shoes that night, and he rushed to be a peacemaker. During the persuasion, I don't know who slapped him a few times. This grandson is really frustrated. And just yesterday, good news came. Many monks who entered the Xianbing secret realm began to leave one after another and appeared in Qingyun City. When he heard the news, Meng Lang was so excited that he almost cried. But another piece of news made him feel like he was struck by lightning. Zhang Chen. This elder brother of the Juyan demon sect, the only son of the Fengling Jiang family, actually killed almost all the righteous Tianjiao in the secret realm. What's more shocking is that Zhang Chen is also a human saint body. After learning this news, Qi Yao sword ancestor was furious, opened the sword box, and summoned the 7 Yao sword pavilion's divine spirit sword. He vowed to capture Zhang Chen back to the 7 Yao sword pavilion and let him be pierced through the heart by thousands of swords. At this moment, the spirit sword was still hanging over Qingyun City, making a deafening sword sound. Buddha ancestor was also furious, like a furious Vajra, and for a while, his golden body could not be condensed smoothly. The two wanted to attack Zhang Chen, and Sui would naturally not sit idly by. Because of Chen Sheng, the 2 ancestors of the Wandao demon sect also planned to help Zhang Chen. Therefore, at this moment, in the huge city lord's mansion, the big guys glared at each other, and the momentum they exuded alone made Meng Lang's fat face roll and his face was messy. Grandpas. Grandmas. Let's talk it over, can you please stop doing this? How about this, you guys go out and fight? Even if we fight till the sky is dark, I won't stop you. Can you please stop doing this? I'm so tired. Give me a way to live, okay? I kneel down for you. Meng Lang was hopeless and kept begging. But the answer he got was the unanimous voice of the big guys. Shut up. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. 9 generations of villains, the heroines have all turned evil. Author, Fu Zituo. Chapter 289. There was a solemn atmosphere in the city lord's mansion. Everyone stared angrily, but the city lord Meng Lang huddled in the corner, trembling like a ball. When juniors fight, death and injury are inevitable. If you want to blame, blame Ukiyo Sword Pavilion and Buddha Temple. Your disciples' skills are inferior to others, Chen Sheng snorted coldly. Yes, it is said that Zhang Chen's killing spree was caused by you and other sex geniuses taking the lead in ambush. You are the one to blame for being killed. Suemo kept nodding in agreement. That's a good statement. That makes sense. The two ancestors of the Wandao demon sect nodded incessantly. Humph. Then Zhang Chen is the holy body of the human race, how can he be compared to ordinary geniuses? Doesn't he have such fighting power because of the power of the holy body? Qiyao ancestor snorted coldly. Since you know that the young master is the human race's holy body, you still try to kill him, Chen Sheng asked. The human race's holy body was born for the human race. In my opinion, not only should you not be enemies with the young master, but you should also enshrine the young master. Amitabha, what Master Chen said is wrong. The ancestor of the Buddha stood up with one hand and said, the human race will never be destroyed, and the holy body will never be extinguished. Although there is only one human holy body in the world at the same time, as long as the one carrying the holy body is when humans fall, other holy bodies will appear. Haha. Hearing this, Suemo sneered again and again. I think it's false for you to punish rape and eradicate evil, but it's true to worry that Zhang Chen, the human holy body, will grow up and be detrimental to the right path, right? A person in the demonic path is not worthy of a human holy body, Qiyao Sword Ancestor blurted out. This statement is tantamount to acknowledging what Suemo said. The Zhang family will not let you go, Chen Sheng changed the subject and threatened directly. The Zhang family is not invincible, Patriarch Buddha retorted. Not enough words to speculate. After hearing that Patriarch Buddha and Qiyao Sword Ancestor were determined to attack Zhang Chen, Chen Sheng was already full of killing intent. Humph. How dare you, a junior in the magical power realm, unleash your murderous intent on us? Why don't you kneel down? Qiyao Sword Ancestor suddenly opened his eyes, and his voice was like a sound, going straight into Chen Sheng's mind. Hear the words. Chen Sheng's ears rang violently in his mind, and his knees went weak out of control. He immediately bit the tip of his tongue and barely restrained the urge to kneel down. Seeing this, the two ancestors of the Wandao demon sect immediately became angry. They and Chen Sheng are brothers from the same mother, how can they sit back and watch outsiders bully their third brother? Court death! Ancestor Wandao shouted loudly, and his cultivation aura surged, rolling away like a roaring mountain and a tsunami. The second ancestor Wandao was also ready to take action, and a strange-shaped ring-shaped spiritual weapon appeared in his hand. Seeing signs that the war was about to break out again, Meng Lang, who was huddled in the corner, trembled and persuaded again. Everyone calm down. If you guys fight, not only this cold city will be destroyed, but dozens or even hundreds of miles around will be affected. In my opinion, this may not be true. After all, there are more than a dozen geniuses who entered the secret realm this time. No matter how strong Zhang Chen is, he can't kill them all, right? I'm afraid there's a certain amount of moisture. After finishing his words, seeing that the big bosses were unmoved, he could only grit his teeth and said, if you really take action and destroy this Qingyun city, then I will have no choice but to report this matter to the Imperial Pavilion. As the surveillance and suppression agency of the Imperial dynasty in the central region, the Imperial Pavilion usually does not care about world affairs, but if there is a massacre of the city that does not take the dynasty seriously, it will not sit idly by and watch. Suemo led thousands of ghosts to Hanjing City. He only dared to let the ghosts capture Zhang Chen, but did not dare to kill him wantonly. This was why. It is also because of concerns about this. A group of big guys who usually dislike each other can live in peace in this small city lord's mansion for many days. In the past, every time Meng Lang said these words, all the big guys would think about it in their hearts. But this time, when they get angry, the big guys can no longer control so much. Qiyao Sword Ancestor and Buddha Patriarch knew that if they wanted to attack Zhang Chen, they had to defeat Su Mo and others first. Su Mo and others also knew that if they wanted to save Zhang Chen this time, a war would be inevitable. The worst thing is, you just have to pay some price afterwards. Fighting among monks is inevitable. I believe that as long as the price is enough, the imperial court will turn a blind eye. Therefore, you threaten me. Sumo's eyes turned cold, and he slapped her from the air, making Meng Lang's eyes flash with stars. How dare you use the imperial pavilion to suppress me? Audacious in the extreme. The two ancestors of the Wandao demon sect snorted coldly at the same time, causing Meng Lang to vomit blood. Although Qiyao Sword Ancestor and Buddha Ancestor did not speak, their suddenly cold eyes made Meng Lang feel as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. At this moment, Meng Lang was completely desperate. He wanted to risk everything and run away first, but suddenly, he saw another figure in red appearing at the gate. Boys, calm down. You have forgotten that this person is Zhang Chen's master. Let her give you an explanation, Meng Lang was quick to think. These words hit my ears. Qiyao Sword Ancestor and Buddha Patriarch both cast unkind glances. The owner of the figure is none other than Xuanhuan. Since arriving in Qingyun City, Xuanhuan has never participated in the battles between the big guys, but only stares at the exit direction of the Xianbing secret realm in a daze every day. When I came here this time, I also learned the news that Zhang Chen killed many geniuses. Xuanhuan took it for granted. She understands Zhang Chen. Knowing that if it was not inevitable, even if Zhang Chen wanted to be a villain in this life, he would not go on such a killing spree. And she knew very well that Nangong Juxi was also in that secret realm. Although she didn't know what happened, she guessed that it had something to do with Nangong Juxi. After all, in the 9 reincarnations, such things have happened too many times. And she came here for only one purpose. Whoever wants to touch Zhang Chen must step over her corpse. She knew it very well. Although she went to the Sea of Red Flames and used the burnt sycamore tree to improve her cultivation and reached the late stage of the supernatural power realm. But with such cultivation, she still couldn't compete with the Nirvana realm cultivators. But even so, she still came. Because she is Zhang Chen's master. In the 9 reincarnations, every time Zhang Chen suffered, she was not by his side. But in this life, she will accompany Zhang Chen to live and die. Xuanhuan walked in slowly from outside. She looked around coldly, and finally her eyes fell on the 7 Light Sword Ancestor and the Buddha Ancestor. My apprentice, no one can touch him. Her voice was extremely cold, and while she spoke, the phoenix fire had already fluttered out of her body. Innate phoenix body. The 7 Light Sword Ancestor narrowed his eyes, and a sense of vigilance flashed in his eyes. Although the Buddha Patriarch did not speak, the exposed skin was already covered with golden light. This is the power of phoenix fire. Even a nirvana cultivator does not want to face its power directly. But, in front of the 7 Lights Patriarch and the Buddha Patriarch, Xuanhuan's cultivation is too weak after all. Well, if the disciple does not teach, it is the fault of the teacher, the 7 Lights Sword Patriarch said in a deep voice. Since you are the grandson of the 9 Lights Patriarch, if you commit suicide, I can spare Zhang Chen's life. These words made Xuanhuan's body tremble, and she was a little moved. She knew very well. If the 7 Lights Patriarch and the Buddha Patriarch were determined to kill Zhang Chen, the consequences would be unimaginable. Although Zhang Chen could fight back by contacting the Zhang family, doing so would put the Zhang family on the road to destruction. Whether it was Zhang Chen's death or the destruction of the Zhang family, This was not what Xuanhuan wanted to see. She felt. If she died and could really save Zhang Chen, it would not be a bad idea. As for the words of the Seven Light Sword ancestor, she had no doubts. After all, the ancestor of the Seven Light Sword Pavilion had already spoken, so he still had to save face. Okay, I will. After weighing the pros and cons in her mind, Xuanhuan made a decision. But she didn't finish her words. There was a bang. A jade coffin broke through the Qingyun City's city defense formation, broke through the roof of the city lord's mansion, and accurately hit the face of the Seven Light Sword ancestor. In an instant, the Seven Lights ancestor's cheek was sunken, and he flew several feet away in an instant. After smashing through several walls with his face, he barely stopped his body. At the same time, a misty figure appeared in the city lord's hall. Let the daughter of the Xiao family commit suicide? Are you two old immortals worthy? 9 generations of villains, the heroines have all turned evil. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 290. Impacted by the jade coffin, the hall of the city lord's mansion was in a mess. The ancestor of Julian stood in the center, with a fluttering white beard, an illusory figure, and a pair of old eyes full of uncontrollable hostility. Make eye contact with him. Qiyao sword ancestor's face was solemn. I have long heard that the strength of the ancestor of Julian is unfathomable, and he may have surpassed the upper 4 realms. He didn't believe it at first. After all, why would a monk with such a level of cultivation have to hide in the central realm? But now, the pain and bruises on his cheek made him have to believe it. However, he still had a fighting spirit on his face. He is a sword cultivator and is in the late stage of nirvana. Although the ancestor of Julian is a monk who has transcended the upper 4 realms, after all, he is only in a spiritual state, and his strength is greatly reduced. He can fight. Here comes the sword. Qiyao sword ancestor shouted loudly. The moment the sound fell, the 7 Yao ancient sword hanging over Qingyun city trembled fiercely, and then brought out 7 color streams of light and came quickly. But the Qiyao ancient sword had just appeared in the hall, and the Qiyao sword ancestor had not yet had time to catch it. You are so brave, Junior, ancestor Julian shouted loudly. The sound is like thunder, deafening and enlightening. Hear the sound. Qiyao sword ancestor's body stagnated, and there was a violent tinnitus in the mind of the ancestor Buddha. The city lord Meng Lang, who was huddled in the corner, felt the shock of energy and blood in an instant, and spit out a mouthful of dirty blood. And taking advantage of this time, the ancestor of Julian stepped forward and grabbed the 7-ray ancient sword in his hand with just his soul power. Gu Jian resisted fiercely. Be honest, Julian ancestor said lightly. Then. The ancient sword seemed to have been frightened, but it suddenly restrained its light and became extremely honest. Upon seeing this scene, Qiyao sword ancestor felt as if he had been struck by lightning. The Qiyao ancient sword is the Zhongzong divine grade spirit sword of the Qiyao sword pavilion. How could it fall into the hands of outsiders? Here comes the sword, in a hurry, Qiyao sword ancestor shouted again. The ancient sword wanted to move, but didn't dare. Sword coming, Qiyao sword ancestor did not give up and continued to shout. This time, Gu Jian simply ignored him. Qiyao sword ancestor's face suddenly turned pale. He is bound by essence and blood to the Qiyao ancient sword, but he cannot recall it from the hands of the Julian ancestor. What does that mean? This means that the Julian ancestor's strength and soul power are beyond his imagination. He just doesn't understand. Could it be that the soul power of the ancestor of Julian is infinite? At this time, it has been too long since the ancestor of Julian appeared in the Buddha temple for the first time in his divine state, but his soul power shows no sign of decreasing at all. Not only has it not decreased, but it has become more abundant. Old man, I feel the breath of several Julian soul fetuses from your body. Suemo, who was watching the battle, noticed something and his expression changed slightly. I picked it up, Julian ancestor replied instantly. Hearing this, Sumo's expression changed again. Picked it up? Do you really think that the Julian soul fetus is a mortal thing that can be picked up anywhere? She instantly understood that it must be the Julian ancestor who took advantage of her to lead thousands of ghosts out of the abyss and plundered the ghost ridge and soul abyss. She said she was very angry. But I only dare to be angry. She knew very well that she was no match for the Julian ancestor. Furthermore, at this time, everyone is still on the same front, so it is not appropriate to break up. Humph, Suemo snorted coldly and looked away. Let's talk about Kiyeo sword ancestor. After realizing the true strength of the Julian ancestor, his face was as dark as water. Go grab it back. He felt that he didn't have the ability. But how could such items fall into the hands of others? Have no choice. After some thought, Kiyeo sword ancestor had no choice but to take a step forward, cupped his hands towards Julian ancestor and said, "Senior, can you return the sword to me?" Ancestor Julian gave him a blank look. It is impossible to return the sword. There is absolutely no reason to return the items that went into his pocket. Not only not to pay it back, but also, you untie the blood essence binding with this ancient sword, and I will spare your life, Julian ancestor threatened with narrowed eyes. These words made the Kiyeo sword ancestor's face darken, and he said, "Senior, are you planning to snatch it away? This is my sword, Pavilion's Zone divine grade spiritual sword. It's not a divine spiritual sword, so I won't grab it," Julian ancestor blurted out. Kiyeo sword ancestor was speechless. Knowing that one person might not be a match for Patriarch Julian, he immediately winked at Patriarch Buddha. This look obviously means, let's go together and get him. The ancestor Buddha was shocked. During the battle between Julian sect and Buddha temple, Patriarch Buddha personally experienced the power of Patriarch Julian and was blasted in public. He originally thought that Kiyeo sword ancestor could meet Julian ancestor. Who knows? This was the moment they met. Not only was Kiyeo ancestor's sword robbed, but his face was also swollen. For the sake of his own life, the Buddha immediately shook his head into a rattle and winked at him. His meaning is also very obvious: it can't be done, it absolutely can't be done. This made Kiyeo sword ancestor despair. He is a swordsman with a tough mind and will never compromise. Even so, he still plans to fight the Julian ancestor. But he had just taken one step. Humph, Julian ancestor snorted again. This time, the cold snort was mixed with boundless cultivation and spiritual power. Behind him, a twisted void formed. The void keeps spreading, for several miles, 10 miles. In an instant, it enveloped 100 miles away. Within 100 miles, there were obviously tens of thousands of monks, but only the Kiyeo sword ancestor and the Buddha ancestor were enveloped among them. After coming to their senses, the two found themselves on a vast battlefield. There were countless armored soldiers all around. In the front, there was a general riding a golden horse and wearing golden armor. The general had a dignified facial features, holding a thick golden halberd, and looking straight at him. He looked at him. The young Julian patriarch, Kiyeo sword patriarch, was shocked. Are we in an illusion? Buddha patriarch was also shocked. Suddenly, the general raised the golden halberd in his hand. Dong, dong, dong. The rhythmic and dull sound of war drums sounded. The general swung the golden halberd in his hand. Kill. In an instant, the flags were waving and the sound of killing shook the sky. Countless soldiers rushed in, densely packed, stretching to the horizon. Just looking at them made people feel numb. Although they didn't understand what was going on, the two ancestors Kiyeo and Buddha still chose to resist. The seven light sword ancestor used his finger as a sword and slashed out a shocking sword energy. The sword energy swept across, and everything it passed was bright red. The Buddha ancestor turned into a golden body, and his palm turned into a Buddha palm, pressing down like a towering mountain. After a few moves by the two, there was already a sea of blood and corpses all around. The cracks in the ground that were already cracked were filled with blood, and the dark red sky was covered with a layer of blood. But the soldiers who swarmed in still showed no sign of decreasing. Because with the death of a soldier, the blood on the ground will condense into a stronger soldier. At the beginning, the soldiers were all in the lower four realms, and the two of them could deal with them very easily. But as the soldiers' cultivation continued to increase, the two gradually felt exhausted. Until the spiritual energy in their bodies was completely exhausted, they found out. At some point, these countless soldiers in front of them became all in the upper four realms. This is definitely an illusion, the Buddha ancestor was sweating. No, this is not an illusion, but... The seven light sword ancestor thought of something and began to tremble. Domain. This domain can only be released after surpassing the upper four realms.